Hello world and welcome to Snap Together Sunday. Yes, it's Sunday, not Saturday. Yes, I'm late. I apologize if you're anyway. You know the drill. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna build a robot or finish building a robot as the case may be. Really it's just the accessories for the new Gundam, the funnels. That's all that's left. Hold up. I'm missing some pieces here. I missed something in the backpack. I might have. The real entry grade has that. Did I miss something in the backpack? I just saw some pieces I overlooked. I did miss some pieces in the backpack. D10. Okay. Whoops. Now let's get those taken care of real quick. Anyway, I'm beating around the bush too much. This is Snap Together Sunday, building the funnels, and then any pieces I may have missed on the new Gundam, which is this boy. Yeah. Let's get on with it. Switch to my overhead view. And let's get into it. So first thing first, as I just noticed, I missed two pieces on the back here. Get the gun out of the way. Some white pieces here and here that are present on the entry grade, but not on the new grade, the high grade. And I do have them. I just missed them, so that's my fault. Let me take the beam saber out, put it back in your backpack. Bothers me that there isn't the open left hand for this guy, but whatever. So real quick, also got my parts. Picked up a runner organizer yesterday, meaning to get one of those. And there it is. All my pieces are nicely organized. Let me grab D. Even with an organizer, things can still fall over the place. That's good to know. Nothing's perfect. Also, those two are not replaced. Okay, anyway, D10. Almost lost it. Okay, this goes. Yes, sir. Yeah, obviously there wasn't much to do. I was just like last time I built the arms and the legs, and I was like, do I want to build a funnel set? I did want to build a funnel set that night, but I just didn't. I was a little too tired. So I'm like, I'll save them for next weekend. Now next week is this week, and I was thinking about doing a midweek stream. I wanted to do a midweek stream, and just the stars didn't align. God damn it! So here we are. Really should have done this last night, but whatever. We're doing it now. All right, that's better. I don't know how I missed that those pieces were missing. Like I said, I just thought they were. I don't know. I thought I'd get to them later or something. I don't know. Put your gun back in place. All right, now then, let's get some payment going.
Day 1233 of...
Did I watch this one? No. Alright. So we do this, each of these twice. D16, E5.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJ Omega channel for day 1233 of our daily content grind, and it is time for another Transformer debate, or rather maybe just a question, because this seems to go back and forth in my audience every single time we kind of talk about this. But first, before we get into that, let us discuss last question that we asked, which was the better evil Optimus Prime. Do you like your Nemesis Prime or your Shattered Glass Prime? And this is a little bit more split than I thought, but we are about like, well, you can see the math. I was trying to do it in my head. Nemesis wins. You know what? That's cool. I didn't know who was actually going to come out on this one. It seems like from the people who voted for Nemesis, the argument was there's just more that can be done creatively with Nemesis Prime as opposed to Shattered Glass Optimus. And you know what? I agree with that sentiment. There's a lot of ways you can get to Nemesis Prime. And based on that, there is a lot you can do with him story-wise and character-wise. Where Shattered Glass is mostly just an inversion of Optimus himself, meaning that it's pretty much a one-way street. What you do with him after that is up to you. But that's true of Nemesis too. So you go from like you basically go from like an open tube to a funnel where there's only one path in and then a lot of paths out. An upside down funnel, now that I think about it. Bad analogy.
E5 and
TJ,
E1.
good job. Point being, I kind of agree with that sentiment. If I had my choice, I do prefer Nemesis over Shattered Glass. So good on you. Good on you. I agree with the majority here. So let's get into today's topic, because we are going to be discussing, we're going to be discussing proper Transformer villain, or maybe not. That's the debate. How do you like your flavor of Megatron? More specifically, should Megatron always be the villain, or is it okay for him to be a good guy? In recent years, it has become more and more popular to paint Megatron as a heroic, or at the very least,
Yes, it is.
sympathetic character, because, well, frankly, he's just too popular.
Yeah, high grade.
So it's remarkable to make him a good guy.
Move my stuff out of the way here. This is their high grade.
Villain. But that said,
I have the entry grade here as well.
so
This is the
I know
entry
there are
grade.
purists out there.
This is the high grade.
Always fall on one side of the fence, but I'm curious just how many of the modern depictions have swayed others into another way of thinking. Now, for starters, yeah, he he's the de facto villain of the entire franchise. He's one of the classic 80s villains. He's up there with, the likes of Cobra Commander, Mum-Ra, and Skeletor, like all those characters from the 80s cartoons. And Megatron seems to be like one of the most long-lasting. Like from all the other franchises, it's certainly like the strongest of the four. And that's just
in universe, it's just because the mobile suits are getting bigger. Space policemen can give you better explanation. And I also think that in real world, they're like, hey, we can make these bigger. And so stuff just got bigger and bigger throughout the Universal Century until the 90s when there was an economic crash. And like, oh shit, stuff's expensive now, let's make the Gundam smaller. Oh shit, I'm supposed to build the... I missed a step here. I'm supposed to attach to this in the middle. So let's fix that thing. Let me clean this up and then I'll come back for that.
base example. Certainly like one of the most long-lasting. Like from all the other franchises, it's certainly like the strongest of the four. And that's just base example. Obviously from that era, there's tons of classic villains from all these different cartoons. The fact that Megatron held true means, yeah, like, he does work really, really well as the lead villain of this franchise, doesn't he? So, there's always going to be the purist out there. There's always going to be the purist who just sees
If they made a Zaku 1 high, master grade or 1/100 scale kit, because you could, I don't know how big they are, but maybe that could work. I don't know. Like, I'm thinking, obviously there's a high grade Zaku, or master grade Zaku 2, because it's like the Goon mecha, and also Char's mecha. I don't know if there's a Zaku 1 in that scale. And then Zaku 3 high grade is bigger. I'm just thinking, hypothetically, the Zaku 3 high grade would be the same physical size roughly as a master grade of the 1 and 2. I don't know that for sure.
Channel for day 1233 of our daily content grind, and it is time for another Transformer debate, or rather maybe just a question, because this seems to go back and forth in my audience every single time we kind of talk about this. But first, before we get into that, let us discuss last question that we asked, which was the better evil Optimus Prime. Do you like your Nemesis Prime or your Shattered Glass Prime? And this is a little bit more split than I thought, but we are about like, well, you can see the odds. You can see the math. I was trying to do it in my head. But Nemesis wins. You know what? That's cool. I didn't know who was actually going to come out on this one. It seems like from people who voted for Nemesis, the argument was there's just more that can be done creatively with Nemesis Prime as opposed to Shattered Glass Optimus.
Didn't they also have Zaku's? I don't know. I haven't seen Wing. I just know they have a lot of suspiciously similar suits to the UC iconic goons. Maybe they had their own variant of the gym. I don't know. Okay, you're supposed to do the yellow around. Okay, I see. Get those linked together.
And you know what? I agree with that sentiment. There's a lot of ways you can get to Nemesis Prime. And based on that, there is a lot you can do with him story-wise and character-wise. Whereas Shattered Glass is mostly just an inversion of Optimus himself, meaning it's pretty much a one-way street. What you do with him after that is up to you, but that's true of Nemesis too. So you go from you basically go from like an open tube to a funnel, where there's only one path in and then a lot of paths out. An upside down funnel, now that I think about it. Bad analogy, TJ. Good job. Good job. Point being, I kind of agree with that sentiment. If I had my choice, I do prefer Nemesis over Shattered Glass. So good on you. Good on you. I agree with the majority here. So let's get into today's topic, because we are going to be discussing, we're going to be discussing proper Transformer villain, or maybe not. That's the debate. How do you like your flavor of Megatron? More specifically, should Megatron always be the villain, or is it okay for him to be a good guy? In recent years, it has become more and more popular to paint Megatron as a heroic, or at the very least, sympathetic character, because, well, frankly, he's just too popular. So, at some point, it's more marketable to make him a good guy and make sure his toys get sold than to keep marketing him as the lead villain. But that said, he really is the lead villain, isn't he? So I know there are purists out there who are gonna always fall on one side of the fence. but I'm curious just how many of the modern depictions have swayed others into another way of thinking. Now, for starters, yeah, he's the de facto villain of the entire franchise. He's one of the classic 80s villains. He's up there with, the likes of Cobra Commander, Mum-Ra, and Skeletor, like all those characters from the 80s cartoons. And Megatron seems to be like one of the most long-lasting. Like, from all the other franchises, it's certainly like the strongest of the four. And that's just base example. Obviously, from that era, there's tons of classic villains from all these different cartoons. The fact that Megatron held true means, yeah, like, he does work really, really well as the lead villain of this franchise, doesn't he? So, there's always going to be the purist out there. There's always going to be the purist who just sees Megatron as the villain at all times, and if they try to make him a hero, that's just writing a completely different character. That's not what Megatron is meant to be. And you might be right on that, because he is meant to be, like, as evil as possible. He is meant to be the antithesis of Optimus Prime. He is supposed to be a conqueror that doesn't really care about...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's not a part of those. Okay, let's build this thing. A26. Put this out in 6 tuplet. 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here.
Any other life forms, including his own men. That said, yeah, like the argument here becomes, you wouldn't do it to Optimus Prime, right? Because let's be honest, it's very rare when we see Optimus Prime evil, and it's always coerced into that. Like, okay, he's been reprogrammed, or like he's been corrupted by Unicron. At no point have we actually seen Optimus Prime actively decide that the more villainous route is the correct one. IDW kind of played with his morality toward the end of their 1.0 run, but that's maybe the extent of it. Because you wouldn't want to see Optimus Prime as a villain. That's why we come up with things like Nemesis Prime and, Shattered Glass Prime. Because it acts more like a novelty than anything. And there's an argument that Megatron should be treated the same way, If Optimus Prime is sacred as a hero, then shouldn't Megatron be sacred as a villain? When you put so many decades of work into making him the bad guy of the entire franchise, why would you go and twist that around? You know what? That's almost, it's kind of fair. That's kind of fair. You need that, that solid villain to hold up a franchise. I will give you that. I will give you that. And really, you need that consistent villain. You really do. Like, I'm a wrestling fan. I understand what it is like to need a villain that is always the villain. That actually, and like to keep them as evil as possible. Because when someone finally defeats him, the hero who finally steps up and, they're the one that actually takes the tyrant down, it's so exciting. And it's so cool to finally see. I've been a wrestling fan long enough to see that from Hollywood Hulk Hogan to modern day Tribal Chief Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. Point being, you need that big villain that everybody knows to make the hero look all that much grander when he finally succeeds in defeating him. So Megatron is designed for that, and that really is the role. That said, we've had some compelling heroic Megatrons in recent years. I have spoken a lot about IDW Megatron on this channel and how much I love that story. Let's not get it twisted. No, you cannot redeem Robo Hitler. That is the baseline argument for people who do not like the IDW 1.0 story. And it's the argument made by people who I know for a fact didn't read the story. Because the entire point of the story is, no, you can't redeem him. You absolutely can't. He admits he's beyond redemption. This is a Megatron who spent 800 years in another universe, saving literally billions of lives the entire time. And by the end of that story, he still knew he was beyond forgiving. 4 million years of death, destruction, and conquer, and you can't just erase it no matter what you do. No matter what, he was that person at one point. He still deserves whatever punishment he's going to get. He himself knows that there's nothing he can do that would redeem him. But the whole point of the IDW Autobot Megatron story is that just because I'm beyond redemption, that doesn't mean I shouldn't try. Even though he was a bad person, he knows he was bad. He doesn't like the fact that he was bad. And he wants to make up for that however he can in whatever time he's got left. But he knows that's it. I can't redeem myself. I'm just going to try. You know, I was that person, I'm not anymore. You know, and just because I was a bad person doesn't mean I need to still be a bad person. That's the story of IDW Megatron. And I really, really like that story. I think it's compelling to see a character who knows he can't be redeemed, but still wants to do good. That's interesting to me. You know, and we've seen other takes on it now. You know, Earthspark also gave us a heroic Megatron. You know, and this is one where, unlike the first Megatron, the IDW Megatron that we saw as a good guy, this one follows a different path of more like compelled to Optimus's side, you know, to end the war. It's the whole, like, why doesn't Batman kill the Joker? You know, it's because that he hopes to bring him down someday in a way that keeps him from coming back. You know, that's the reason why the big hero doesn't kill the big villain, even though he knows it's going to lead to another disaster at some point. Gotham is going to be poisoned once again, but the hope is you can defeat them without sinking to their level. You know, that's the heroic way of doing things. So when it comes to, you know, your Megatron situation, when it comes to, like, this take on Megatron, we don't know how much villainy he did in the past, so, you know, maybe there is room for redeeming this one. You know, maybe he can be, and, you know, that's actually the story they tell. Then Megatron saw he was on the wrong and decided, okay, well, we'll try it your way, Prime. And that tells another interesting story, because it's a take on Megatron we haven't seen in 40 years. And really, I feel like those are compelling, you know? Like, let's be honest here. Machinima Megatron was the only reason to watch this show. That good guy Megatron, who's just sick of the war, just completely over it. He's just tired. This Megatron is just tired. And you know what? Fine. I will see that. You know, and this is, again, I like this Megatron, and I think this is literally the only reason why you watch this show. Because it's the only redeeming quality. And let's be fair here. It's happened everywhere else. It's happened everywhere else. Eventually, if a villain is around long enough, they will try to make them into a good guy in fiction at some point or another. There are very, very few exceptions. You know, Joker is an exception. Carnage in Spider-Man is an exception, outside of when all the heroes and villains got their, you know, their alignment reversed. That's a different story. Even then, Carnage was still a trash human being. He was just well-meaning. But no, like, you look at, like, Lex Luthor. You know, if we're comparing, like, lead hero and lead villain, you know, Superman and Lex Luthor, right? Luthor's put on the S and tried to be a hero before. You know, more than once, actually, he's tried to be on the more heroic side of things. And this was genuine. This wasn't a ruse. This wasn't a power play. It was, like, literally, like, he wanted to, like, take up the mantle. So, and you know what? Sometimes it works. This was actually an interesting story, and I'm someone who doesn't really like Superman, and even I was interested by this. And sometimes you have to do these things to kind of shake a character up after writing them for, you know, decades. But that said, you don't have to resort to that, and you don't have to resort to a full face turn here in order to get that. Cyberverse is so underrated story-wise. It is such an underrated show. we're going to do a whole video just dedicated to why you really should have watched Cyberverse and why you need to put respect on that series, because that show did things it really should not have been capable of doing. And one of the things it did was show a Megatron who can still be a villain, who can still be an enemy to the Autobots, but also be agreeable enough to decide, hey, you know what? This war needs to end right now. You stay on your side, I'll stay on my side, and we'll just leave it at that. He's still antagonistic, but he's reasonable. You know, so you can have a Megatron who is still a villain, but also understand that there are more important things. You know? That that we can actually, like, end this war on amicable terms. Or at the very least, agreeable terms. And that also is an interesting take on Megatron that we don't normally see. And I like seeing that. Like, he's a really interesting take on Megatron for that. And things like that also allow story elements that we don't normally get in Transformers. One of the things that is apparent here, I mentioned Spider-Man and Carnage here. Now, give me a thing. So, like, when you're dealing with arch enemies, Optimus Prime and Megatron, yeah? Spider-Man, it's not Carnage, it's Green Goblin. Another character who is usually a villain, but has tried to be heroic more than once. The point being, there are always bigger fish in the pond. Megatron is the villain of Transformers, but he is not the villain. You know, he's not the bigger threat. You know, for that, you know, you're looking at, like, going back to Superman, Doomsday. You know, you'll say Lex Luthor is the main villain for Superman, but Doomsday is absolutely the bigger threat. And that's true of a lot of heroes. That, you know, their arch villain isn't always their worst villain. You know, for Superman, you make an argument for Darkseid. For Spider-Man, it's Green Goblin. You make an argument for Carnage. There's a few others throughout history that you could potentially argue would be a far bigger threat. Things like that, that kind of toil on my mind, because it is something Transformers lacks. You know, we have the Fallen or Megatronus, but really, like, there's such a gap between Megatron and Unicron where there just aren't enough villain characters to fill the gaps. But the point being, you know, having Megatron as the villain means like there is room to step up, and that's where Megatron can also be written in an interesting way, even though he's still a bad guy. We saw that in Armada. You know, Armada Megatron kind of went, you know what, there's a bigger threat here. Let's actually figure this out. G2 Megatron kind of ends with him working alongside the Autobots to defeat the Swarm and G-Axis. Again, he did not have to be a full-on hero to do that. He could just be agreeable for a while, and that tells another story that, you know, frankly, isn't as interesting when he's just a straight-up good guy. You know, it gives the character as a villain more depth, and I think it makes the character more interesting. You know, so there are ways to do it without making him the villain. So maybe all of the arguments of, like, why Megatron should be a good guy kind of go by the wayside when there are ways of writing around that and creating a similar compelling story without full-on just taking your main villain and saying he's a good guy now. At the end of the day, Megatron is seen as the villain of Transformers. He is synonymous with that role, and there really isn't any permanent removal of him from that. Making him an Autobot in IDW, making him an ally in Earthspark, all of this might just be gimmickry for attention. You know, I will admit, when Norman Osborn comes out and says, hey, I'm just going to be the Golden Goblin now and be a good guy, you know they're doing it for attention. When Lex Luthor puts on the Superman S, you know he's just doing it for attention. You know, the comic books are doing it just for the sake of attention. Because, like, oh my god, why is he a good guy now? And that's kind of how Megatron gets treated as an Autobot, but I feel like the stories are compelling enough to justify it. But then again, they're compelling because we expect Megatron to be the villain, because he makes a really, really good villain. And written correctly, and given the right context, you can still have a lot of those advantages of the Autobot, you know, good guy Megatron, without actually, like, completely devastating, you know, the guy who should be your main villain. So, there's your debate. I have argued this a little bit back and forth here. Your debate is which one do you like? Do you think Megatron should be a villain all the time, or is it okay for him to be a good guy once in a while? So, obviously, this is one of those where it's going to be like, well, it depends on the story. I use that answer a lot in the monthly Q&As. Well, it depends on the story. But there is a preference here, and I genuinely want to hear your preference, okay? So that's in the description below. You'll find a link to a straw poll. Just go to it, cast your vote, and here probably in a couple weeks, when I come up with another debate idea, we will discuss the results and see how everything turned out. For now, that's what I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I will see you next time.
You've been waiting a long time, haven't you? But the wait's almost over.
Okay, if anybody wants my input, I'm okay with a hero with Megatron redemption now and then. Doesn't need to happen every time. This needs to be earned. But I'm also quite okay with Megatrons who are just bad. Megalomaniacal. Yeah, there's room for both, but Megatron should be the villain. I just think he should be a smart villain, though. I don't need a dumb Megatron. Not that we've had it. Well, G1 Megatron was a dumb Megatron. But I think most of the ones since then have been pretty smart.
Dark rides have been entertaining guests since the late 1800s. Starting as simple mill rides, they've been constantly evolving, integrating new technologies, weaving more immersive stories, and bringing thrills into the equation. Prior to 1999, Disney had been the undisputed king of dark rides, essentially bringing them to the mainstream with the opening of Disneyland. However, in 1999, Universal had a chip on their shoulder, and a desperate desire to prove themselves as a true competitor to Disney. This led to them taking a major risk with the construction of their second Orlando park. Universal was going to attempt to combine every technology they could get their hands on and create a world-class dark ride that wouldn't just rival Disney, but beat them. And I believe they were successful. Before we get further into this video, I do really just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for the support in the last video. It was really nice after, all the work that went into that, just to see people really enjoy it the same way. It meant a lot. And I'm just really grateful for all the support you guys have given me so far. So, yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's jump all the way back to the beginning of what we would end up calling dark rides. Old mills, or tunnels of love, would begin showing up at fairgrounds in the late 1800s, giving guests a very slow tour of different vignettes, atmospheres, or tunnels. The execution was basic, but for the time it worked. Guests would flock to these mill rides as a place to unwind and do other things. Just watch the Defunct Glenn Garfield video if you want more info on that. This is not the place for me to explain that to you. We don't have a lot of time here. But as time went on, another form of dark ride would sweep the carnivals and parks in the 1930s. This is when the pretzel dark ride would be introduced and popularized. This leap in innovation brought individual powered cars that would ride on a track through a building with theme show scenes. This would become basically the core of every single dark ride since, telling a story through individual show scenes that the guests are moving through. During this time, pretzel dark rides became commonplace at parks across the world, and guest expectations began to rise. Over time, the rides become slightly more elaborate, But in 1955, the opening of Disneyland would cause another massive leap forward in terms of dark ride technology.
It's a Peter Pan fly-through. And go on in there, kids. They ride in pirate galleons that hang on a monorail. Are you having fun? Yeah! And you're going to get a ride through here, and the pirate galleon is hanging on a monorail, and it flies, first of all, out through a moonbeam sea, out over London town, and down below are all the lights twinkling. And it looks as if this is going to be one of the most exciting rides of all, because as they go through, they see everything that Peter Pan saw.
Walt and his Imagineers would take the Pretzel Dark Ride and create far more elaborate show scenes than would have been done previously with Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Peter Pan's Flight took this technology and flipped it below the track to bring a new sense of immersion and storytelling to the ride. And the Jungle Cruise would show that combining the story scenes of Pretzel Dark Rides with a boat like the Old Mills could still provide an entertaining experience even in the daylight. All of these rides also placed guests in the role of a protagonist in the story. Guests weren't simply observers, and while it took them a while to warm up to this idea, eventually it worked, and it's still how most dark rides are positioned narratively today. Over the years, Disney would continue to refine and expand the idea of their dark rides. Pirates of the Caribbean and Haunted Mansion would try to blend the narrative-focused rides they had done previously with the sort of cocktail party spectacle that Small World provided, creating dark rides without one clear storyline, but many intertwined ones, playing into an overarching theme beyond just spectacle. Also, with Adventure Through Inner Space and the Haunted Mansion after, the Omnimover system allowed designers to control a guest's vision and create a more personalized experience for each guest. It can't be overstated how much Disney was the leader in the dark ride landscape. While regional parks would get dark rides, they were never close to the scale and ambition of what Disney was doing. Disney knew this, and they treated it as their bread and butter.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, Chairman of the Walt Disney Company. To celebrate this very special evening, we're proud to present the television premiere of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Tighten up your sneakers and get ready for a joyous romp through a world you've never seen before, unless you happen to be an ant. This really is something else. It's a different world down here. Look at the size of that coffee cup. My secretary would love it. She don't have to fill it once a month. Anyway.
I'm gonna be right back. I just need to grab something from upstairs. Turn off my countdown. Alright, and I'm back. Just putting together the...
Hey, enjoy tonight's special feature. I've got to figure out a way to get off of this desk.
funnels here.
When Michael Eisner took over the Disney company in 1984, in reality it was actually his son Breck, saw a need for more thrilling attractions at the Disney parks beyond just what they had to offer already. Tony Baxter and his Imagineering team took this in mind and would end up taking technology that was being developed and used by the military to train pilots and create what would open as the first major simulator dark ride in a theme park with Star Tours in 1987.
We ready, George?
Yes, we are.
How about you, CP3?
Oh, yes, Master Michael. Thank you. All right, everyone. Prepare for the ribbon cutting.
It's the combination of creativity and new technology. When you add technology as one element and creativity as another, I think you get 1 and 1 equaling 4. Right? And the ability for Disney to be the leader in not only creativity, but in technology, and the marriage of the two, to me, is a great accomplishment.
Star Tours was an incredibly innovative ride at the time. Instead of having to recreate the Star Wars universe at this large scale for a high-speed ride, Disney was able to simulate it in the very constricting adventure through inner space show building. Disney was able to create a thrilling dark ride in a box, and the public ate it up. Parks around the world would instantly take notice, especially Universal, who had already been working on the idea of a motion simulator prior to Disney Star Tours. Universal would open their Orlando park with the Fantastic World of Hanna-Barbera, which was a far less thrilling simulator with the screen separated from the actual ride motion. They then would quickly follow this up with Back to Future the Ride, which also still kept the screen separate from the ride, but would be far more thrilling in terms of what it had to offer. At the same time, Disney would end up cloning Star Tours to their new MGM Studios park to bring their simulator to the East Coast. With 4 simulator rides proving to be cost-effective hits at Disney and Universal, and computer graphics taking these massive strides forward, the 1990s would see a boom in simulator rides across the world, seeing them installed at smaller regional parks and kind of somewhat cheapening the experience. Also in the 1990s, 3D movies saw this major resurgence in pop culture. Now, Disney had been using 3D movies in their parks for a while at this point, but the movie itself was always kind of the main attraction. Now, over at Universal Studios Florida in 1996 though, they opened Terminator 2 3D, which combined a 3D film with this full stage stunt show. And this show got rave reviews and ended up becoming a staple at many Universal parks until the late 2010s.
I definitely think Universal has raised the bar a little bit with Terminator 2. They have combined moving 3D images that go from one screen to the other.
Let's go. We don't have much time.
There are interactive live actors on the stage that go back into the screen and become 3D characters and back out. And it's seamless. You feel it, you see it, you experience it like I've never seen before.
This fusion of 2 different existing attraction types would go on to help inspire Universal in future attractions, including one at their soon-to-be-announced second park in Florida.
That's backwards, damn it.
In the early development for what would become Islands of Adventure, Universal had a plan to partner with DC Comics to create this land centered around the classic DC heroes and villains. And Universal knew this meant that they needed a major ride themed around Superman. Now, at the same time, Universal was also in the midst of the theme park wars between them and Disney, which I talked about a lot in my last video on Eisner. But for our purposes today, Universal had this massive chip on their shoulder, and they really wanted to beat Disney at their own game. So as Universal's business arm was working on those pesky Superman rights, Universal's creative team tasked a young, somewhat unproven, but visionary employee at the helm of the ride's development, in Scott Trowbridge. But Trowbridge
dropped a piece, I'll be right back. Oh, landed on my chair. That's fortunate.
wasn't alone. He was partnered up with industry veteran Terry Koo, who was overseeing the development of the entire land. These two would lead a large team of creatives and work alongside many industry partners to begin developing ideas for the Superman ride. The ride was originally intended to use the ever-popular Omnimover system, like Disney's Haunted Mansion or Adventures Through Inner Space. But they wanted to combine the Omnimover with both 3D screens like those in Terminator 2 3D, as well as some practical effects to create an immersive experience. They also thought this could create a more thrilling dark ride without necessarily being a thrill ride. These concepts didn't get too far, however, because in 1995, Disney would open Indiana Jones' adventure Temple of the Forbidden Eye, which would introduce the enhanced motion vehicle dark ride system. In this system, a wheelbase that moves forward along a slotted track is equipped with a motion simulator base on top of it. This allowed Disney to simulate motion while also advancing a vehicle through real practical sets. When Indiana Jones opened, Trowbridge and Thierry immediately knew they needed to change from the Omnimover system and adopt some sort of motion simulation into the Superman ride. Universal, however, had the advantage of a few extra years of ride technology development. And those few extra years made a huge difference. Oceaneering International, whose main business was developing deep-sea rovers of all things, assisted Universal in creating their own version of an enhanced motion vehicle, which we now refer to as the Scoop. This vehicle solved a lot of major problems that Disney had faced with their EMVs. Unlike those, the Scoop system was relatively lightweight. It had the ability to spin freely 360 degrees. It was able to make more precise and sharp movements. It minimized the use of hydraulics, which were the source of a lot of problems for Disney's rides. And the Scoop's track was much more subtle because of its Omnimover-esque sightlines. It could end up being mostly hidden from guests.
We are marrying a 6-off motion base, and you can see here the guts of the 6-off motion base. This is the part that makes this whole vehicle do this. So we can simulate, flying, falling, bumping, hitting. At the same time, we have a system that spins the entire structure around. You can just spin it around and around and around all day long if you want it to. Very impressive to watch this thing go, especially close up, because it really moves.
The Scoop ride system was the key to unlocking the creativity of the project. It anchored the story and the effects that the team planned to add to it. And around this time is finally where the change you've been expecting happened. DC was playing hard to get, and Universal was fed up with their demands. This led Universal's business team to go to DC's far less popular, at the time, competitor Marvel, and offer a great deal to build the superhero land around Marvel characters instead. The creative team reportedly didn't take this change too well, as they were heavily in development and were somewhat blindsided by the rash change of characters. Luckily for the Superman team, Marvel had one superhero who also works at a newspaper, flies or swings through a city, and has frequent battles with a gang of villains. So Superman became Spider-Man, and that was a lot easier than some of the other concepts. Rest in peace, Batman versus the Penguin. Alright, so now that we're actually at the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, let's talk about what the ride experience is like. I want to note, first off, that I'm going to show footage of the new projection media. The overall experience is pretty much the same, just improved, so I think it'll be easier to watch than an old POV. And I do like to film things myself as much as possible for these videos, so I thought that was the better outcome and better option for this. But before we get into the ride, we have to talk about the queue quickly. The queue is the Daily Bugle, which is a perfect fit. In the first room, guests are introduced to the newest advancement in journalism, the Scoop, the most high-tech news collecting vehicle known to man. As guests continue through the queue, they enter the cubicles of the newsroom, which is strangely empty. Overhead is television news coverage of the latest scheme from the Sinister Syndicate. They have taken control of New York City using Dr. Octopus's new anti-gravity cannon, including having stolen the Statue of Liberty. When it's clear that he has no reporters left, J. Jonah Jameson decides to send the tourists into the Scoop to cover the situation. This sends guests into the loading station. After boarding, you start the ride in the back alleys of New York City when J. Jonah Jameson sets you out on your mission to get the Scoop. As you pass through the streets, the spider signal illuminates in front of you, introducing the webbed hero, or Menace. Shortly after, Spider-Man leaps onto your vehicle, warning you about the imminent danger.
shouldn't be out here. Doc Ock on this could be the most dangerous night of my life. And yours. Be careful. Nice shades.
And after a near miss with a truck carrying toxic chemicals, you enter Warehouse 13, where the Sinister Syndicate are hiding out with pieces of the Statue of Liberty. When J. Jonah Jameson blows your cover, the villains spot you and the scoop.
Hey, what's going on? What was that?
Then the first villain you encounter is Electro, who attempts to deliver a lethal shock to the scoop, which fails and sends you both flying. After a close encounter with Scream, Dr. Octopus attempts to hit the guest with his anti-gravity cannon, first missing and hitting the head of the Statue of Liberty, and then again hitting a wooden crate. The scoop and the guests end up spiraling down into the sewers of the city, where Spider-Man tries to send them back to safety before being interrupted by Hydro Man, who soaks the scoop and nearly sends a pipe into you. After being sent out of the sewers, Dr. Octopus breaks through a brick wall and attempts to use fire to scare the guests away, but not before breaking off the bumper of the scoop, sending him and the scoop flying backwards. Then the scoop gets a view of the Brooklyn Bridge and the New York City skyline before Hobgoblin flies in. Spider-Man saves guests from the first pumpkin bomb and thankfully sends the second one off course and into a nearby building, sending off a fireball. As J. Jonah Jameson laments the damage done to his top-of-the-line scoop, Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus engage in a one-on-one battle, ultimately leading Dr. Octopus to take aim at the scoop with his anti-gravity cannon. The scoop begins floating up high in the New York City skyline. Spider-Man tries to web you down from your heights, but not before he has to face the Sinister Syndicate one final time. He begins by wrapping up Scream, causing his web to send the scoop crashing into Hobgoblin. Next, Spider-Man takes down Hydro Man and Electro by causing Electro to take aim at Hydro Man accidentally. Dr. Octopus then tries to end it once and for all by disabling the scoop's anti-gravity, sending it and the guests free-falling 400 feet. Spider-Man shoots down a last-minute web to catch the scoop, saving the guests and defeating the Sinister Syndicate. As the scoop makes its way back to the Bugle, Spider-Man has the Syndicate all wrapped up and thanks us for our help, but tells us to not give up our day jobs. Back at the Bugle, Spider-Man has repurposed the anti-gravity cannon as a gift of sorts for J. Jonah Jameson as guests unload the scoop. When Islands of Adventure opened in 1999, The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man was one of the headlining attractions, and it didn't disappoint. Reception to the ride was immediately overwhelmingly positive for both the casual guests and those in the industry. While most of what was at Islands of Adventure on opening day used existing ride technology, The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man was the exception, and people noticed. The ride would win the Golden Ticket Award for Best Dark Ride 12 years in a row, starting its opening year. This ride is still winning awards to this day. Like, in November of 2024, it took home the Thea Classic Award for standing the test of time, which was a welcome surprise when working on this video. The ride showed the general public that Universal could not only keep up with Disney in the world of ride technology, but even in some cases, exceed them.
Alright.
The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man has shaped every dark ride after it in one way or another. While the ride itself didn't necessarily invent much new technology, what it did was effortlessly combine a wide array of technology, all working together to create a seamless story and experience. While rides previously had motion simulation, tracked vehicles, 3D screens, and a ton of practical effects, none combined them to the extent that Spider-Man was able to. The best way to see the impact of Spider-Man is to look at the flagship dark rides that have opened since: Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, Transformers The Ride 3D, Mystic Manor, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Rise of the Resistance, and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. Have any of these rides pushed the ride experience of dark rides further than The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man? I don't think any do to the same extent that Spider-Man took the genre forward. That's not to say I can't see why people would prefer some of these rides to Spider-Man, but what I'm talking about here is how Spider-Man was able to combine all the technological advancements of over 2 decades of ride technology in a way that served the story and immersed the riders far beyond what had been done previously. Some newer rides also don't balance the amount of practical integration into virtual sets that Spider-Man does. The world of a comic book required a lot of screens to be used. However, Universal blended those screens into practical sets at every opportunity they could. None more impressive than the variety of moving projections and set pieces that are used to achieve the levitation scene at the end. That effect only works so well because of the mixture of practical and digital, and many subsequent rides have missed the mark on this blending of reality and virtual. Now, I know your first thought probably is, what about trackless ride vehicles, like Rise of the Resistance? I know this might be controversial. I don't necessarily see those as the leap forward they're made out to be. Maybe if more rides were built in the style of how Tokyo Disneyland utilizes them to create kind of unexpected ride paths and still maintain theming on the floor and not feel like a warehouse. But with the trade-offs that come with trackless ride vehicles in the US parks, I don't think they've pushed dark rides drastically forward. Now, Rise of the Resistance is the closest to pushing dark rides as forward as Spider-Man, with its addition of the drop shaft. However, Spider-Man's ability to simulate that experience in a way that feels correct for the comic book world you're in makes it feel more iterative than impactful. This ride also proved that thrill elements can be incorporated effectively into a dark ride without sacrificing storytelling or rideability. Using simulated speed with large projection screens and synchronized vehicle movements created a comic book feeling of action and thrill without being too much for the average guest. While Rise of the Resistance has added those thrill elements, Spider-Man did it 20 years earlier. Another part of this is the longevity of the ride. The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man has maintained its popularity since opening, with wait times typically sitting around 30 minutes on any given day. With this continued popularity, Universal went in and did a major refresh of the ride in 2012, keeping everything in top shape while also swapping out the projectors and the projected media to new higher quality renders.
The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man has been revamped, and the team behind it says expect new energy and thrills. And I'm getting a sneak peek on the day that it is back open, but I gotta wear my new Spider Vision glasses to check it out.
We had a chance to make it even better, so that's what we decided to do, and I think we've really done a great job just making it even more dynamic, more colorful, more intense.
This also meant switching 3D glasses to a new Infotech system that, while it made it easier for guests sensitive to 3D content, also made it harder for me to film, so sorry about that. But for a company like Universal to not just invest in maintaining the ride, but also to plus it, shows how special they see this ride as well, and not just because it holds Spider-Man captive from Disney or Orlando. I still personally believe that The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man is the best dark ride that I've ever been on. And I'll continue to say that until something comes along that completely changes my view on what a dark ride can be. Okay, now to get into the part of this video that I actually made this whole video for. I just wanted an opportunity to talk about all the details of this ride that just make me love it. Now, this is going to be kind of disjointed, but it's fun. So, first off, the voice cast of this ride is incredible. Dr. Octopus is voiced by Roger Bumpus, who you probably know better as Squidward Tennis Balls from SpongeBob. Similarly, Hydro Man is voiced by Bill Fagerbakke, who is definitely better known as Patrick Star from SpongeBob. J. Jonah Jameson is voiced by Chris Edgerly, who's probably better known as the voice of Spider-Man from this ride. Yeah, Chris Edgerly voices both J. Jonah Jameson and Spider-Man in this ride. Like, just listen to this.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Chris Edgerly. That's right, the voice of Peter Parker and The Amazing Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson on The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man ride. Boy, that's a mouthful right there. Huh. All right, listen up. This is J. Jonah Jameson. And if it's motivation you want, how about this? In the meantime, stay safe and be careful. Nice shades. Huh. Some of you.
And for good measure, here's Electro's voice actor Jim Wise reprising his role.
If you think now is the time to relax, you're in for quite a shock.
Next, the original plan for the animation was actually to use motion capture of, like, athletes. But their motion didn't end up feeling superhuman enough. So they ended up manually animating every single aspect of the ride film, which greatly increased the scope of the project. The production company and Universal also worked to develop a new rendering process for the ride film that was called squinching. This distorted the animation in sync with the ride vehicle's motion to counteract the perspective of the ride vehicle and make the 3D work in a moving environment. The original ride film was also actually printed onto actual film, which just sounds like a logistical nightmare, but I guess it was probably more of a proven technology to use at the time. The ride was also one of the first uses of rear projection in a theme park ride, which is the same technology that Disney would end up using on their projected animatronic faces for a bit. Now, there are 4 Stan Lee cameos featured throughout the ride, as well as 4 Iron Man references hidden. I'm going to let you know where the Stan Lee ones are because they're a little bit more obvious, but I want you to go find the Iron Man ones for yourself next time you ride. The first Stan Lee is driving the truck that almost crashes into you. The second is entering the movie theater. The first Stan Lee is driving the truck that almost crashes into you. The first Stan Lee is driving the truck that almost crashes into you. The second is entering the movie theater. The third is shocked when you land in Spider-Man's web. And the last one is in the back left corner of the finale scene. Stan Lee also voices the unload spiel.
Good job, Team Scoop. You did great. Now when the scoop comes to a stop, carefully raise your left foot and exit the vehicle. Make sure you take all your personal belongings, and you can drop off the night vision goggles in the bins provided. Now, I'd better see about getting Mr. Jameson down. See you later.
Now, J. Jonah Jameson also definitely uses some choice language for Spider-Man when you're almost hit by the truck. Kind of interesting to hear in a theme park ride, but just listen. Now, if you look closely at the ground throughout the ride, you can catch some glimpses of lights that are used to illuminate the real props around the screens, in sync with the ride film, to really seamlessly blend the two worlds. For example, in the warehouse scene, green lights illuminate the crates and shelves around the screen when Doc Ock activates the anti-gravity cannon. Another thing towards the end of the warehouse scenes is that there's actually just a control point that's used for ride breakdowns, left fully visible just because it blends in with all the industrial theming around it. Most rides you'll see these are covered by like metal doors to hide them from guest view, but it just worked in this case so they left it open. Now these next two are my favorite guest view around it. Most rides you'll blend the two worlds. For example, in the warehouse scene, green lights illuminate the crates and shelves around the screen when Doc Ock activates the anti-gravity cannon. Another thing towards the end of the warehouse scenes is that there's actually just a control point that's used for ride breakdowns, left fully visible just because it blends in with all the industrial theming around it. Most rides you'll see these are covered by like metal doors to hide them from guest view, but it just worked in this case so they left it open. Now these next two are my favorite type of Easter eggs that you can find in rides. When you enter the theater scene, you'll see references to the ride's creators. If you look to the left, you'll see a sign for the coup, which is a reference to Terry Coup. And also if you pronounce it Terry Coop, it sounds like the scoop. So could be either, but I'm assuming it was to his name. At the same time, on the right, you'll see a sign pointing back towards the previous scene at the Brooklyn Bridge. However, instead of saying Brooklyn Bridge, it says Trowbridge. Scott Trowbridge. Also, the theater itself is named Excelsior, which was Stan Lee's catchphrase. You can also find a phone number to the theater that over the years has had different themed messages. The number, if you want to call it, is 407-224-1783.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. My spider senses are telling me that you'll be visiting Universal Orlando Resort soon. I hope you have an amazing adventure. Make sure to swing by and see me when you're here.
He hung up on me, how rude. Also, kind of a weird thing for an Easter egg in a ride that it references you making a trip to the resort soon and says you should ride my ride. When to get an Easter egg, you have to be on the ride. They should really think that through again. When Doc Ock hits the scoop with his anti-gravity cannon, there's underglow lighting in the scoop itself that is activated to match the green glow around things hit by the cannon. Then, when you reach the scene with Hydro Man and Electro, you might notice it's one of the few scenes with a themed ceiling, because the perspective of that scene is you looking up, so it had to have a themed ceiling, because the ceiling is actually the screen. Then, when you're caught by Spider-Man's web at the end of the finale scenes, the manhole cover in front of you says "Not an exit," which it's just one of those little details that made me laugh when I first noticed it. And finally, when Islands of Adventure was under construction, almost all the rides were being constantly ridden and tested by basically any Universal employee at the time for months before opening. Spider-Man, though, was the exception to this, with the ride construction being kept very secretive until the opening in the park. All of these little details and Easter eggs make me really appreciate the ride more and more every time I'm on it, and I'm constantly discovering new things. Now, I know I've probably missed hundreds and hundreds of them, and I look forward to finding those new ones all the time. The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man perfected the concept of a dark ride in my opinion. The ride brought together the technology that would become staples of every dark ride since, and combined them in a way that has stood the test of time. While rides have iterated on this technology in the years since, I don't think a ride has taken the same leap forward that The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man did. In the meantime, parks have tried to make rides interactive and trackless, but both have come with trade-offs that Spider-Man didn't end up with. I'm just excited to see what's next, and more importantly, when that next major step forward in the world of dark rides will come. Thank you so much for watching. I originally thought this was going to be a lot shorter of a video, but pretty quickly I realized I had a lot more to say about this ride than I thought I did. So if you're watching all the way to the end here, I really appreciate it, and I'm glad someone else enjoys listening to me ramble about the Spider-Man ride for however long this video's been. But yeah, if you're here, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts. I know people will disagree with this one, but I'd love to know why in a somewhat respectful manner, please. My mom does read these comments, so please just be nice. But anyways, I'm gonna go see about getting Mr. Jameson down while I'm here.
This is a Disney dollar, Disney's bold attempt at creating a currency of their own. Discover how a novelty souvenir changed the travel industry, is now worth, wait, how much money? And watch the events unfold as I attempt to spend these defunct dollars today.
I know I shouldn't, but it's for science. I have to see if Disney dollars still work here at Magic Kingdom. So here I go. Do you guys take cash?
Oh God. 1987 was a year of new beginnings for the Walt Disney Company. The first Disney store opened. George Lucas entered a new Disney Parks partnership with Star Tours opening at Disneyland, and the French government put pen to paper to begin development for the soon-to-be Euro Disney. In May of 1987, Disney would debut possibly their biggest gamble yet. What they referred to as currency with character, otherwise known as the Disney dollar. The idea was unprecedented. Never before had such a large private company created a tender and allowed regular folk to exchange real money for it. Well, there was one company that tried it. Disney. The predecessor to the Disney dollar was recreation notes. These were not dollars, but coupons that were only available to VIPs and special guests from 1971 to 1972 in Disney World. 16 years later, the idea resurfaced when Jack Lindquist, Disneyland president and the legendary marketing mastermind responsible for this,
I'm gonna go to Disney World!
pushed for a return of these Mickey bucks. The plan was to allow guests to trade in the cash they brought to spend at the theme parks and in exchange receive an equivalent amount in Disney dollars.
Well, when guests arrive at the main gate and they come up to the ticket booths, they're going to have their choice when they buy their admission media to receive their change in either U.S. currency or those wonderful Disney dollars.
Disney dollars would not only act as a cool souvenir for Disney fans to take home with them after their trip, but also led to Disney pocketing a few extra bucks every time that happened. Kind of like a paper version of a gift card, except this one looks much better on a bookshelf. On May 5th of 1987, Scrooge McDuck, the Disney dollar treasurer, would help deliver the first 2 million Disney dollars to the ticket booths just outside of Disneyland. News cameras awaited as Disney superfan Dale Castile was the first honorary recipient of Disney dollars.
I came here at 1 o'clock this morning and I bought 45 ones and 6 fives.
Why?
Why? Because they're the first Disney dollars.
So you might be wondering, what makes up a Disney dollar? The layout is very similar to American currency. It's printed and engraved on rag cotton stock with a dollar amount in each corner. Has a signature from the treasurer, this time Scrooge McDuck, a serial number that actually had meaning to the numbers and letters. Oh, and at the center of the Disney dollar, Mickey Mouse, 'cause who else? I guess part of the appeal of the Disney dollar is the uncanny nature of the bills. After all, visiting Disney parks is in part escaping the real world. Why would you want to be reminded of George Washington or Abraham Lincoln while you're visiting the most magical place on Earth? Later on, Disney would introduce their $5, $10, and $50 bills into circulation, many with different characters at the center. A total of 173 series and special edition bills were created over the span of its near 30-year run. Some of the most sought after being their Villain series, Pirates of the Caribbean series, or my personal favorite, Chicken Little. Everyone remembers the instant classic that was 2005's Chicken Little. All jokes aside, the creation of the Disney dollar was simply a marketing ploy to make more money, as Disney would eventually expand the location that accepted Disney dollars from just the parks to Disney stores worldwide, Disney cruise ships, and their private island in the Caribbean. Back in 1987, when the Disney dollar debuted, the dawn of the quote Disney adult had yet to enter the pop culture vernacular. But that didn't stop these fully grown Disney fans from getting their hands on some sweet, sweet Mickey bucks.
Well, I felt they'd be valuable as a collector's item someday, and I wanted to save half for my son and I, and the rest will probably sell someday down the road.
Not everyone was eager to invest their life savings into Disney dollars. In fact, it became sort of a joke to one particular comedy cartoon at the time.
Would you like to buy some itchy and scratchy money?
What's that?
Well, it's money that's made just for the park. It works just like regular money, but it's, fun.
I'll take $1,100 worth.
It's not like this stopped other companies from following in Disney's footsteps. Over at their rival theme park, Universal Studios was cooking up their own collectible tender. To be honest, there's not a whole lot of interesting history on these Universal dollars. The bills featured a variety of characters from their parks. Woody Woodpecker, Popeye, Betty Boop, Spider-Man, and that one guy from The Mummy, just to name a few. Every one of these that I found online were dated between 2002 and 2006. But even though they're nearly 20 years old at this point, I've been told once in a blue moon, people still spend these at the parks. Replacing the Universal dollar was actually a currency you could buy and spend here today, and it's just behind this brick wall. Here in Diagon Alley at Universal Florida sits Gringotts Bank. And what would a bank be without a money exchange?
So I've been told you have $10 and $20 banknotes. Would I be able to get a 10?
Today I purchased a $10 Gringotts banknote to use at either Diagon Alley or Hogsmeade. Not gonna lie though, I might just end up keeping it. It's kind of a fun keepsake that you can still buy today, unlike, you know, Disney dollars. So I know what you're thinking. Ryan, whatever happened to these Disney dollars? Well, they were going strong throughout the mid-2000s, but with Disney's introduction of their Magic Band technology to the parks in 2013, which came with a tap-to-pay feature, as well as people just not carrying around cash anymore, the Disney company stopped printing new Disney dollars in 2014. According to multiple sources online and Disney's customer service themselves, Disney dollars should still be accepted around their company locations today. So naturally, I scoured the internet to try to get my hands on a few, and in turn, discovered they now hold quite a bit more value than they ever had before. Yes, this is an actual listing I found on eBay. So I did what any reasonable content creator would do. I embarked on a mission. Right now, I am on my way to the legendary Lakeland Antique Mall. If you're not aware of exactly what that is, well, the Lakeland Antique Mall is a hotspot for both Disney World and Universal props, memorabilia, and hopefully today, Disney dollars, but we'll have to see. Here at Lakeland Antique Mall, you can find everything from Pokemon cards to discarded Shrek 4D glasses. Scratch that, a lot of Shrek 4D stuff, but I cannot let this distract me. We're here on a mission. We know exactly what we're here for. That is Disney dollars, and we're gonna find them. We're gonna find them in one of these glass cases. I feel like that has to be where they are. So we've stumbled upon a bunch of different variations of dollars that have been sold in the past, and I'm looking, and I can't find the Disney dollars. I know. Brady was like, "Oh, there it is. It's gonna be in there," and it's not. It's not, unfortunately. The other thing to look out for here is if you're looking for pins, there's a lot of pins that mysteriously Disney has never printed. There was one that I found last time, which I don't think I'm going to find us today, that said that was a Splash Mountain logo, but then across like the arch of it said "Save Splash Mountain."
I've seen that one.
And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, let's speak of the devil. I found one. Look at this. Justice for Song of the South. I know they say no merchandise in the bathroom, but this should be flushed down the toilet. So I've yet to find a Disney dollar, but what I did find is a Disney recreational coupon dollar, which I did mention earlier in the video. This is actually really, really rare, and the price reflects it. This is $300. I will not be going home with this one today. Well, after an hour and a half of deliberate searching, I'm very, very sad to inform you that we couldn't, I'm just kidding. We found a dollar. We found a Disney dollar. As a matter of fact, this is actually a first edition Disney dollar that was sold at Disneyland way back in 1987. And you could tell, not just because it says 1987, but also it's one of the first 258,000 that were sold or exchanged over at Disneyland. I ended up spending $16.99 for my single Disney dollar. Not bad considering some of the listings that I saw online. To be completely honest, most of the Disney dollars on eBay were listed between $12 and $25. That $25,000 listing was real, but only an idiot would buy that. Since my goal was to attempt to spend these Disney dollars, it was important that I knew going in exactly how many Disney dollars I needed. I had to weigh my options. Do I go for a cheap $1 item? I have a weird question. Do you know if there's anything for sale here that's just $1? Like just a single dollar or less?
I don't think so.
No. I quickly found out that wasn't going to happen. But don't worry, I came prepared. Yeah, okay, I got some on eBay. Between the $1 from Lakeland, a second dollar I bought off eBay, and a surprisingly cheap $5 that I found, I have spent a total of $84 on Disney dollars in the past week, which makes this next part really, really unfortunate. There is no Disney snack more iconic than a Mickey bar, and lucky for me, they currently cost $6.50. I know I shouldn't, but it's for science. I have to see if Disney dollars still work here at Magic Kingdom. So here I go. Can I get a Mickey bar? Do you guys take cash? Okay. Cool. $6.50.
Like, and if I still had access to it how I did before, the only reason I was able to only put
No. Thank you.
Within the 2 months that I was gone from, he couldn't get them for me, and I wasn't old enough to buy them for myself.
Is that okay? It still works?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure.
It's just very rare that we get it, so they're newer, so they don't know about it.
Okay. Sorry about that. It's the only thing I have with me today, so I just...
It's been a while since I've seen one, so it's really cool.
Yeah, I thank you.
Mickey dollars. Easy dollars or whatever. Yeah.
We're good? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. They were so confused.
Well, you did it. How do you feel?
Defeated. There was so much build up to this, and I was just like, I don't know if it's gonna work. I don't know if there's gonna be an issue. And now it's just like, I'm out a lot of money, honestly. Like I said, I spent $84 on those Disney dollars, and they were just like, yep, we're good. The cast member I handed it to was very confused after I asked if they take cash. And I don't know. Kristen, how stupid am I?
Very. I would just like to go on record and say that I am holding the most expensive Mickey bar potentially ever bought in the Magic Kingdom, ever bought in Disney World.
Well, they don't Uber Eats Mickey bars, so I feel like if that, maybe it could get close.
I mean, I guess, but all the points leading up to this, I was like, Ryan, are you sure you should do this? Trust me, guys. I know you're with me. I convinced him not to actually spend the Disney dollars, and he really did it. And now we just have a sleeve where the Disney dollars once sat, empty. You better stand there and enjoy every last drop of Mickey's sweet cream. Is it good?
No, I mean, it's not... You'd expect an $84 Mickey bar to taste better than a standard one. No, not at all. It's the exact same. Would not recommend.
Weird.
If you made it this far in the video, let me know in the comment section down below. If Disney began printing Disney dollars once again, would you buy some? A simple yes or no will do, but it's really the only way I know you are a real one and made it this far in the video. Thank you to Roosevelt's for all of the cozy threads that I'm wearing in this video. It is very necessary today because it is 40 degrees and raining at the Magic Kingdom. For 15% off their winter wear plus their entire website, you can check out the link down below. Huge shout out to all of my wonderful Patreon supporters. This video would not have been possible without you. For exclusive vlogs, including our trip to the Lakeland Antique Mall to find these Disney dollars, you can head over here to become a member of the Pity Crew. For a deep dive on the bizarre history of Walt Disney World and pro wrestling, watch that video right here. Or if you want to learn about the failed Disney fast food chain, check out this one. I am Ryan. This has been For the Love of Theme Parks, and I will see you all real soon. Okay, bye.
I think there is actually a difference. I think it makes it look like there's a difference in the instructions, but I don't think there's an actual difference. I'll give him just a... Okay, so the number of dots on the connector, which you can't see anyway once it's built. That's more just to say 1, 2, or 3, really. let's make this 49.
I am late to the party when it comes to dunking on History Channel content. People say it went downhill at some point, which I find hard to argue against, considering vintage History Channel content looks like this.
They were very human looking. They had 2 arms, 2 legs.
Actually, are things really so different today? Cable was booming in the 1990s, leading way for the History Channel to provide an endless stream of World War II content for guys who thought they were Tony Soprano.
You ever watch a History Channel?
He's just like me for real. You know, minus all the bad things. What I'm trying to say is we both spend a lot of time thinking about the Roman Empire, which is why we'd watch something pitched as ancient Rome meets true crime.
He'd come to the big city looking for a good time. He found it. And much more on the dark streets.
Now that's the history I want to see. But by 2009, the History Channel had rebranded itself to Just History with the tagline, History Made Every Day, which alluded to a brand new slate of popular reality shows. Shows like Pawn Stars and Ice Road Truckers were criticized for being barely historical. But within just a few short years, shows like these brought the History Channel up from a top 20 cable channel to a top 5. I watched so much Pawn Stars as a kid, I'm kind of sorry to admit that my viewership contributed to the downfall of education in this country. Yeah, this is Billiam. By prioritizing ratings over educating, the History Channel put history in the backseat and sometimes drove the audience into dishonest territory. It's hard not to look at the History Channel's programming lineup and come to the conclusion that, yeah, they just straight up lie over there sometimes. From perpetuating easy to disprove theories like ancient aliens and Hitler's surviving, to spreading false information with shows like Amelia Earhart, The Lost Evidence, and f***ing Bigfoot Captured, which features a team of investigators successfully capturing Bigfoot. It doesn't matter if it's because of a lack of responsibility, carelessness, or just making a mistake. In this video, we're going to cover the times the History Channel just straight up lied.
Remembering for generations to come, the History Channel, where the past comes alive.
Now we gotta talk about big bad scary monsters. I was obsessed with Monster Quest as a kid because I really believed something like this could happen to me.
It was this reptilian type creature.
2 figures and scaly skin.
In my last video, I covered History's Missing in Alaska, a show where 3 dudes investigate missing persons cases that could be related to monsters lurking in the Alaskan Triangle. This one guy, Jax, he harvests his own blood to try to lure in a mermaid, dripping it out into the ocean. But alas, like every monster hunting reality show, the hosts bleed while letting the monsters slip through their fingers. They never catch them. But what would it look like if they did? Following in the footsteps of Animal Planet's Mermaids the Body Found and the Discovery Channel's Megalodon The Monster Shark Lives, both of which I've talked about on this channel, the History Channel decided it would be a good idea to do a little lying themselves. Enter Breaking History, Bigfoot Captured. They got him. They finally fucking got him. What makes this program so irksome is its blending of reality. The protagonist is an actor, an unnamed filmmaker.
And I want to be the first filmmaker to prove Bigfoot exists.
Who goes on 2 Bigfoot expeditions. One with real people in the Bigfoot community like Idaho State University professor Jeffrey Meldrum, and a second with a huge group of actors in a staged scenario in which Bigfoot is really captured for real.
Shut this guy up.
God, is he gonna come over here?
Though I admit, without the dramatization, the special would be pretty boring. They do standard Bigfoot show things where they explain how amazing the Patterson-Gimlin Bigfoot film is, without ever addressing that Roger Patterson, who shot the footage, was a fucking con artist. Patterson committed check fraud, and before his fated encounter with Bigfoot, he drew a mock-up of the Bigfoot, titties and everything. He planned earlier Bigfoot shoots, wrote a Bigfoot book, and had every reason to fake the footage. He had already he made Bigfoot his career. Although they do build a cool 3D printed, quote, anatomically correct Bigfoot skeleton with the help of Professor Meldrum and other academics at Idaho State. But after that, it appears they have found a biped in the forest who isn't one of them. Could it be Bigfoot?
The biped, yeah. An upright being walking bipedally.
An upright being walking bipedally? There's only one kind of person on the face of this planet that has ever strung those words together to make that kind of sentence, and it's Bigfoot hunters. The tensions within the expedition are at an all-time high considering Bigfoot is really here. Oh my god. Bigfoot calls out to the party, f***s with their equipment, chases after them, throws rocks at them. He is relentless. But they end up luring him into a cage with the beast's reported favorite foods. A concoction of donuts, maple syrup, chocolate syrup, and a lot of trail mix. That could catch any guy with big feet, to be honest. And it works. Bigfoot shows up. Holy shit, he is a big boy. I cannot deny Bigfoot standing up like that looks so cool. But then they catch him in a cage and get a good look at him, and I don't know about his face, y'all. I get that they're trying to make him look more human-like, but I relate to the more beastly Bigfoot, I think. You could relate to the beast as a human as well without just a guy. They're trying to have a moral lesson about Bigfoot, I think.
These creatures aren't animals, they're people.
Like, just because you're ugly doesn't mean you don't exist. But something about that mug is so unserious. Like, but I feel his sadness. He's hurt.
Is it hurt?
It's singing.
Yeah, dude, fuck that. Do you think Bigfoot is holding space for breaking history? At the end of the night, Bigfoot defies captivity, escaping and leaving the team to an emotional, wicked breakdown.
Let's settle this. We forget about this. We just lost a Sasquatch.
I applaud them for going full out here. Like, yeah, can lie to me, History Channel, but make it obvious.
Really? Oh yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go. You've been told that. Bring it. Yo!
But what's the lesson to finding Bigfoot? What to capturing him?
Maybe it's better not to find Bigfoot. To let him or his legend live.
Was Bigfoot ever meant to be found? Probably not. Don't ask me. I wouldn't know the answer because I was educated by the History Channel. Monster hunting reality shows have to fudge the truth a little bit, but that's just sort of the case with all reality shows. Obviously, shows like Pawn Stars are staged, yet I give them a pass because to me, there is an attempt at educating the audience about whatever relic they uncover.
Bam! That is 18th century onyx diamond authentic spectacles.
Sweet.
Like I never even knew that 18th century onyx diamond authentic surprise spectacles even existed. The staging of the negotiations are all dumb, but I like show and tell as a format, especially considering I'm not even sure I would watch a whole documentary about Pez dispensers.
That's an insult to the Pez community. I can't believe it.
Just show them to me and tell me about it a little. Get early into producing reality shows, the History Channel figured out that there would be a conflict of interest in between people looking to make good reality TV and people wanting to educate the audience. For example, Chasing Mummies takes real Egyptian archaeologist Dr. Zahi Hawass.
Zahi's friends call him the Pharaoh. He rules his world like a king and holds all the keys.
And clashes him with reality show producers looking to make good, dramatic TV.
It sounded crazy, but you never say no to a Pharaoh.
The whole show is made at Hawass's expense, who has no idea the entire time. The crew is literally just fucking with him.
You say, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I don't hear it.
Yes, sir.
Like in the army. Archaeology is like in the army, but it's fun.
Playing right into the famous archaeologist's famously big ego. In this show, the History Channel was lying to the host. It's literally like a prank show at his expense, and he never figures it out. The fellows are clearly actors constantly pestering and playing dumb to irritate Dr. Hawass.
And you still ask me the question. This is wrong. You don't understand. You listen to me.
For some reason, I want to say this is the funniest lie the History Channel ever told. The film crew begs Dr. Hawass to take them inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. At first, he's reluctant because he says going inside the pyramid is no game, and he can tell these people are not up to the task.
It's dangerous. No, my guys are tough. My guys will do it. Let us do it.
An easily convinced Hawass and an overconfident film crew make their way inside the pyramid. By the third chamber, a cameraman throws his back out and the lead producer has a giant panic attack and is given oxygen. You should have listened to the Pharaoh, because now you look like an old Giza coming out of that pyramid.
I got turned around.
I think what makes this show funny is Hawass is known for having an attitude. And during the height of his career, he was accused of taking credit for other people's work and of being a misogynist, something I would not have mentioned if he literally didn't smack ass on camera.
Go!
Okay.
Go! Go!
Like, this is an inner look into his Indiana Jones fantasy. He wants undergrads under him so he can smack ass. We saw it, he did it. And it's really easy to poke fun at this man for wanting to be Indiana Jones when you consider his apparel line, which is totally indie-core, if you will. Inside the pyramid, Dr. Hawass has had it up to here with all of these filmmakers. And then fellow Zoe tries to scurry off so she can use the bathroom inside the pyramid.
I have to go to the bathroom.
You can't go to the bathroom here. This is like a church, like a mosque.
Derek is always asking stupid questions, especially right after Hawass has already explained something to him once or twice. So when Derek finally retains something, Dr. Hawass is so fucking happy.
Exactly. Good turn. You are learning now.
Derek has successfully translated the graffiti in the pyramid accurately, but Dr. Hawass explains the graffiti has faded because of humidity exposure over the years, giving Zoe the perfect moment to tell Dr. Hawass she just peed her pants. Inside the king's chamber, inside the pyramid of Giza.
Dr. Hawass, I lost it. And I just went to the bathroom.
So he banishes Zoe from the pyramid. He says, get out of here. Finally, it's been a long day of stupid questions, piss, and drama. So when they finally make it to the fifth chamber, Derek shares his newfound knowledge.
No.
This chamber might have been built by aliens.
This is stupid. After all this teaching and working with me in the tombs of the pyramid builders, looking at the graffiti, and you come and you tell me aliens? Shut up!
They had Dr. Hawass guide them inside to the pyramid, this treacherous adventure, if you will, just to bait him like that. And then Zoe comes back from banishment just to poke him some more.
You can go and work at the supermarket, but not to work for me. Goodbye.
5 years after this series got canceled, Dr. Hawass did an interview with the Washington Post where he revealed that it was revealed to him after the filming had wrapped that Zoe peeing was just an event staged by the producers. Sure, f***ing with Dr. Hawass is pretty funny, but I don't think pouring water all over the floors of the Pyramid of Giza, where there's water damage there already, erasing history, I don't think that's funny. The History Channel producers were literally instructing on-screen talent to destroy history. It feels weird and disrespectful. I mean, the pyramid didn't do anything to you. The pyramid didn't smack anyone's ass. We would not be able to cover the History Channel in any meaningful capacity without mentioning ancient aliens.
A number of people who have claimed that they've been abducted by extraterrestrials also claim that they've witnessed what they say are alien-human hybrids.
But that show's success really was just an inevitability, as History Channel aired tons of crazy alien shows before Ancient Aliens was ever a consideration.
What's their real agenda?
There was a biological, reproductive elements of my experiences. I'm not ashamed in reporting that.
That's fucked up. The alien didn't have sex with me when I got abducted, but what makes Ancient Aliens so ridiculous is just its sheer success. 20 seasons and over 250 episodes, with no signs of slowing down. The show is based on the popular pseudo-archaeological hypothesis of ancient astronauts, which claims that ancient civilizations were given life and knowledge from alien visitors. Masterful cultural archaeological artistry and architecture are quickly snatched up out of any meaningful cultural context to explain that actually aliens did it. Stonehenge, aliens. Einstein, aliens. The pyramids.
And you tell me aliens? Shut up!
Not the pyramids, not the fucking pyramids. When I said I was late to dunking on the History Channel, I mean I'm really late. Over 10 years ago, South Park dunked on ancient aliens in a parody retelling of the Thanksgiving myth.
The Pilgrims and Native Americans may have been visited by aliens.
However, over 50 years ago, Eric von Daniken, who popularized the ancient astronaut hypothesis in his book, Chariots of the Gods, quickly became the target of mockery.
Every time von Daniken finds the artifact that constructs the architecture of a non-Western civilization where he can't figure out how they made it, He says it had to be done by extraterrestrial intervention. Since there's a whole lot that he can't figure out, he has extraterrestrial intervention all over the world. I think that's essentially where he's at.
Before publishing his book in 1968, von Daniken was convicted of fraud.
Eric von Daniken wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods.
But Chariots of the Gods went on to be an international smash hit. As of November 2016, 8 years ago, Chariots of the Gods and all of its alien-related sequels had sold up to 70 million copies. Von Daniken, more like goddamn man, that's a lot of money. But I just want to clarify, I personally promise there is no relation between von Daniken's fraud and his theories about aliens.
He shows some pictures that could only have been done by a super intelligent,
so he says,
aliens that came here long ago and so forth.
Again, this man's love of fraud has nothing to do with his love of ancient aliens, but it's only allegedly love. According to writer Jason Colavito, who has many works rebuking ancient aliens, Daniken's work can be traced back to earlier UFOlogy and ancient alien descriptions, such as that found in the popular French New Age book The Morning of the Magicians, published in 1960. And even before that, H.P. Lovecraft, in his most popular work, The Call of Cthulhu, describes a scenario that is very reminiscent of ancient astronauts. Except, you know, Lovecraft explicitly clarified that although this mythology was convincing, it was strictly fiction. But von Daniken never tried to take credit for these ideas. And in fact, in a 1974 interview with Playboy, von Daniken explains that when he wrote Chariot of the Gods, he was not yet a believer. You know, it took writing like 6 or 7 successful books to become a believer. It was so good, he convinced himself. This interview is wild. I swear to God, I subscribed to Playboy just to read this interview. I was skipping past all the pages so quickly looking for this interview, I didn't look at a single nipple. I swear to God. When confronted with any number of his basic factual errors, von Daniken would often come up with a funny excuse. Chariots of the Gods in his later book describes his international adventures, going to exotic locales to study exotic archaeology. And to me, in this interview, it seems like von Daniken just thought nobody would ever go through the effort to, like, check what he was claiming he saw. Von Daniken probably never thought somebody would go to Ecuador and ask the person he name-dropped in the book, Juan Morris, about the secret cave he apparently took von Daniken to. A place where von Daniken claimed to find ancient furniture made of plastic, a menagerie of gold animals, a library of imprinted metal plates, and other evidence of a great early civilization. According to von Daniken, it was the most incredible, fantastic story of the century. Yet when asked, Juan Morris said he never took von Daniken to any place like that, because no place like that exists.
And this is a photograph which was made at the expedition of Juan Moritz in 1969. I was never here.
But that's not what the book says. Von Daniken clearly describes descending by ropes and switching on his light to visit the underworld of a strange unknown race.
The fraud has nothing to do with what he says about aliens, but the interview is capped perfectly. Eric von Daniken is asked bluntly, "Are you, as one writer suggested, quote, the most brilliant satirist in German literature for a century?" Von Daniken replied, "The answer is yes. And no."
Yet these books are claimed to be factual. So how is the reader to know whether the author is using dramatic effects or whether he is simply telling lies?
Not to mention, the man was horribly racist. Like, horrifically racist. I'll read just one of these quotes, but trust me, they're all really bad. I'm gonna pull the screen in so you know I'm reading this, and you know that it's not coming from my heart. I'll shake my head too. Was the black race a failure? And did the extraterrestrials change the genetic code by gene surgery and then program a white or yellow race? Extra one for the yellow race. Although Western culture has definitely been put under the lens by ancient aliens, it's hard to deny the idea that ancient astronaut theory is intrinsically anti-human. It's anti-intellectual, it's anti-creativity. It often, you know, it's pretty racist.
On Easter Island as elsewhere, von Daniken underestimates the ability of people who, to his eyes, are primitive and unsophisticated.
I bring up Eric von Daniken's history because he was exposed as a fraud in his day, basically.
The Easter Island statues were made by men. To invoke the aid of space gods involves deliberately ignoring the evidence.
So here it is.
Me no dum-dum, you dum-dum.
Yet in the early days of Ancient Aliens, he was a talking head. He's still alive today. And the guests on the show constantly bring up von Daniken's work in a very reverential way.
I couldn't put that book down
because it answered a whole bunch of questions that I had.
And Ancient Aliens wasn't even the first time he was covered on the History Channel. Ancient Astronauts was a topic on History's Mysteries in 1998, on Mysteries of the Ancient World in 2003, on UFO Files in seasons 1, 2, and 3, and even after the show Ancient Aliens started, the theory was covered on the show America's Book of Secrets, chronicling the government's apparent role in covering up ancient astronaut hypothesis.
Extraterrestrials are coming to this planet, and they're doing some very strangely evil things.
I understand a few specials from a few different shows here and there, but how the fuck did they take this concept and make a 300 episode epic out of it? Well, they basically just go way beyond ancient astronaut theory.
Our oceans are in fact a great extraterrestrial laboratory.
Did extraterrestrials in some way influence this battle by disguising themselves as a familiar figure like George Washington?
Is there a connection between aliens and insects?
They throw in a lot of nonsense and try to make it align with aliens. It's no wonder the face of the show, Giorgio Tsoukalos, became a meme so quickly after the show started. So did Rick from Pawn Stars. You know, you don't get that kind of cultural penetration by telling straight histories. You have to be a little bit of a cartoon character. It's pretty crazy seeing Giorgio become a meme man in real time during the show. Season 1, Giorgio can kind of get it. He's just coming off of a bodybuilding career, but as his hairline starts to go up, so does the rest of his hair. And by season whatever, they're using his iconic crazy hair as iconography to promote the upcoming season. The whole meme behind his personality is that no matter what the evidence was, it was aliens. Take season 4, episode 10, Aliens and Dinosaurs, which asks the question bravely, are aliens to blame for the dinosaurs' extinction?
Advanced nuclear weapons had at one time devastated our planet. And might they have been deliberately deployed in an effort to wipe out the dinosaurs?
I'm assuming they're asking so we can press fucking charges.
Or were they deliberately killed off?
It's determined the aliens must have waged nuclear warfare against the dinosaurs in the past. We know this thanks to radioactive dinosaur fossils being found. But even that's not so amazing because as the show fails to explain, there's naturally occurring radioactive material in the earth from volcanoes, which is carried to the bones via groundwater. Duh. They figure out by exploring up their own ass that aliens killed the dinosaurs, genetically engineering them into birds because they are, quote, more manageable. You just can't argue with that. Birds are suspiciously easier to handle than dinosaurs are. But as the show says, birds are actually dinosaurs because of aliens. The theorists' so-called evidence are usually cropped images of what they want the viewer to see. Apparently, there's a carving of a stegosaurus on the outside of this temple monastery in Ta Prohm, Cambodia. Yeah, that really does look like a stegosaurus there, and I'm pretty stumped for a second. But one more thing. Can I see the rest of the photo? Yeah, you see those scalloped edges kind of just look like a fucking plant underneath a modern animal, and all of these little carvings are adorned with plants behind them. I found this approximation of what it would look like colored in. You know, I'm starting to think that might not be a stegosaurus. And let me tell you, when I saw this thing, I said, fuck, that looks like a stegosaurus. They also try to pass off other known hoaxes as evidence without explaining their origin, such as the ancient Ica stones. They depict humans riding dinosaurs. That's pretty convincing, except for the fact that they're actually the work of a Peruvian farmer, a human artist, who admitted to carving the stones himself. Ancient Aliens is trying to take away his artistry and attribute it to aliens.
You lie! You lie!
Also, wait. What do you mean aliens? We're talking about humans and dinosaurs living together at the same time. What the fuck does this have to do with aliens anymore? What happened to the aliens? The show just moves on from them for like half of the episode to prove that humans and dinosaurs walked together on this earth at the same time. But as Riley Black, writing for Smithsonian Magazine, points out, this goes beyond aliens because these misconceptions are also commonly used as creationist talking points to discredit evolution, which the show describes with a deriding attitude. Open the schools. Please open the schools. Ancient civilizations are amazing. Dinosaurs are amazing. It'd be really cool if they existed at the same time, but we just don't have any evidence to suggest that was the case. And that's not to suggest that archaeologists and scientists know everything, but they have no reason to believe dinosaurs and ancient civilizations existed at the same time. Maybe we can be inspired by how advanced the people of the past were during such ancient times without dinosaurs, instead of limiting our mind and our potential by explaining that we need aliens to do amazing things. It's way easier to say the aliens helped us build the pyramids than it is for you to go outside and build your own pyramid. Open the schools.
For all of history, all in one place. Call your cable company and ask them to carry the History Channel.
You know, it doesn't take that much time researching to realize that the History Channel was never a critical darling amongst basic cable, even its historical programming. Just a few years ago, Vikings was history's first popular scripted program, but it has been called out for being littered with historical inaccuracies. And going to any specialty forum will find people dissatisfied with how history has covered any given topic. The Car Forum is disappointed with the cars that made America. The Treasure Hunting Forums is disappointed with the pirate's treasure of the Knights Templar. But even back in the year 2000, before the History Channel was headlining bullshit, academic Brian Taves wrote the critique, The History Channel and the Challenge of Historical Programming, which articulated the kinds of problems facing historical programming, namely a lack of respect for archive material and the struggles to produce high-quality, accurate material on razor-thin cable TV budgets. First, when the History Channel started, history relied on filling its schedule with archive material, and they would air this without any attempt to contextualize it for a modern audience, such as when they aired a historical film strip about Wernher von Braun's contributions to U.S. aerospace engineering, a piece that was created to propagandize the United States to attract international talent, a film strip that completely neglects to mention von Braun's history as a Nazi, a piece of Cold War propaganda re-aired decades later without any historic context, just to fill airspace. So Billiam here is going to give you some context. Here's an awesome diss track written in 1967.
Call him a Nazi, he won't even frown. Nazi schmatzi, says Werner von Braun.
Though in the article, Taves does admit that the History Channel would air high-quality documentary programming. Just none of it was made by the History Channel. And it's pretty easy to see why.
Bronze plates sculpted to look like a muscular torso.
Back then, A&E and History Channel's flagship biography series had a budget of around $50,000 to $60,000, with a turnaround time as quick as a week, and on one occasion, a single day, as they aired a special on Sonny Bono immediately following his death. When compared to PBS's biography series, American Masters, which was produced on an average of $500,000 to $600,000 apiece, with 6 to 8 months of production time. The result, even some of the History Channel's well-regarded programming from its early days had mixed results. The Old West would regularly feature narration that disagreed with the historians they interviewed on the show, alongside inaccurately placed B-roll, which would often create a new, unintended, and often extremely inaccurate meaning. It's hard to say the History Channel necessarily went downhill when its integrity was being questioned within the very first year it was on the air. In 1996, it was reported the upcoming series, The History of Enterprise, would be sponsored by some of the corporations whose stories would be told in it, including AT&T and General Motors. The Chicago Tribune asked, is the History Channel selling out? Okay, bro, I know this article was written 28 years ago, but the History Channel was 1 year old. How could you say they were selling out to anything? You can't sell out if you were never authentic to begin with. In history's pursuit of creating historical entertainment, often historical inaccuracies wouldn't only be a flaw in their production workflow, but an inevitable feature. On 3 different occasions, the History Channel had to pull or change programming because it did not meet to their editorial standards in a very extreme way. We're not talking about inaccuracies in historical content. They let a lot of that stuff go. In these examples, somewhere along the way, somebody had to just straight up lie. First, in 2004, History had aired a conspiracy piece called The Men Who Killed Kennedy, based on a book by former attorney Barr McClellan, who had been disbarred after being accused and charged of forging signatures. The special directly implicated JFK's vice president and future president Lyndon B. Johnson as the lead conspirator behind JFK's killing, an accusation which put the History Channel under fire from former members of Johnson's administration and his widowed wife. History apologized and pulled the program from syndication after having it reviewed by historians, which maybe should have just been in the production process to begin with. Then, in 2015, season 2 of the show Hunting Hitler premiered with a brand new lead. They want to prove Hitler survived, and this photo apparently shows an aged Adolf having escaped to Argentina. The photo is proven to be a fake in a later episode, but the show fails to reveal that this is a photo of Mo Howard from the Three Stooges. They later re-edited the season premiere to make it appear as if the team had suspected it to be a fake the entire time. But as YouTuber James K. Lambert points out, this is a still from a video of Mo Howard, meaning somebody would have had to reprint it on photo paper and create the frame to make it a forgery. In the episode where it's revealed to be a fake, they absolutely just stop short of explaining where the photo came from. And it's one of the Three Stooges, revealing the cast of Hunting Hitler to be the modern iteration of the comedy trio. If they re-edited the episode, you have to ask the question, was this photo authentically presented to the History Channel, or was somebody lying? Finally, in 2017, the special Amelia Earhart The Lost Evidence aired. Amelia Earhart, of course, is a famous pilot who went missing trying to fly across the Pacific. But photographic evidence revealed exclusively in this special supports the previously unsubstantiated theory that Amelia had been captured and killed by the Japanese. The only problem, a Japanese blogger sourced the photo from a 1935 travel guide published 2 years before Amelia went missing. So even if this is her in the photo, it does not support the theory. The History Channel aired this program once and then never distributed it again in any form. In my opinion, these kinds of things are inevitable as history tries to make history profitable. And that's what makes publicly supported edutainment so important. Programming by the BBC and PBS can be high quality without having to turn a profit. And turning a profit is only possible for the History Channel when they're either re-airing a better documentary that somebody else made, or by making documentaries themselves dirt cheap. The History Channel has always been considered a lower standard of historical content. Yet still, they've tried to infiltrate the American education system even after they started making things like Ancient Aliens. Historian Jeremy Stern criticized the History Channel's America, the Story of Us, as being an overcorrection to America's history being told through a politically correct lens. In translation, it is a retelling of America's history through the lens of celebrity talking heads instead of historic experts, which often totally erases any of the politics surrounding major events in American history. Stay with me. For example, the Boston Tea Party, an event in which American revolutionaries destroy Royal British imports, tea, in Boston Harbor, gets a reenactment without ever mentioning that they were protesting the Tea Act. They explain why the Boston Tea Party was protesting high taxes on tea without explaining why they targeted a British ship. In fact, the Tea Act of 1773 was not an increase on taxes. It was a decrease of taxes to the English, which allowed them to export tea into the Americas at cheaper rates, making them more competitive compared to American-made tea, which is why tea bootlegging was massive during the colonial era. But they never take the time to get into these kinds of details for what they're talking about, because they're making room for all of the celebrity interviews. The early days of US colonization are presented in a way that minimizes the Atlantic slave trade and presents the US as largely uninhabited virgin lands with potential to be exploited for profit, with hundreds of years of Native American contact being glossed over in literally seconds. Stern finishes his review describing America, the Story of Us, as a series so empty it hardly deserves to be called a documentary. One might as well try to reconstruct a chicken by staring at bits of eggshell. But why am I mentioning this all these years later? Why is this unique amongst the History Channel's shows? Well, because the History Channel ran a campaign to give a free copy of this series to any classroom in America who asked for it, along with accompanying curriculum material. It was introduced by President Obama and featured interviews from Donald, and no one would guess he'd be the next President Trump, giving commentary that could really be included in any documentary about anyone. You know who I want to teach me about my history? Martha Stewart. America makes me want to sing, so bring in Sheryl Crow. And hey, we're giving out this program to high schoolers, so why not throw P. Diddy in there? He loves kids. All these celebrities are here to talk to you about the American dream, regardless of the context and the content of the episodes. And when they were sending this out to high schools, I was in high school. I remember the worksheets, the study guides, and then I remembered something else. I had an ebook when I took American history, and I still have that ebook. This is my high school history textbook. And look who published it. Well. No wonder why I'm fucking stupid. The Penny Pinching History Channel wrote my American high school textbook. But on the flip side, penny pinching is why the History Channel's reenactments are so good. That is to say, they're not good at all. They're really bad. But oh boy, do they give these documentaries texture. I'm so happy I live in the same world as these crazy reenactments, and it is how history happened in my head, because that's what I was taught. So if you're interested in hearing the opinions of a man with a cable TV education, why not subscribe? See ya.
Alright, here is my mostly complete Nu Gundam. Out of the A decals, the waist piece I'm gonna have to deal with. So it's a bitch to get the whatever. Get a photograph. Already started to show some wear. So I need some action bases to properly display these, but the idea is that the funnels, each one can do this number. I did not bring an action base down with me. It wouldn't fit on a traditional action base anyway, so I'd have to get the adapters. A little back heavy. Once again, you can detach the funnels from the Nu Gundam high grade and attach it to the entry grade, as well as his gun there. And it fits. A little snug there, but it fits. But he's a little not as strong. Joints are a little weaker, so. It's compatible, I'll give it that. But that has been the entry grade, the high grade, I forgot what I was building here. High grade Nu Gundam, New Year, Nu Gundam. It is January 27th, so been working on this off and on all the year. Thank you all for coming out. What do I want to do next? Got choices here. In theory, my next oldest kit, actually, my oldest kit is the Mobile Gundam, which I said I was going to build, but I kind of want to, I don't know, I think I'll hold off on that until I actually finish watching G Gundam. So, I've got the Netflix movie thing, Gundam, and the Zaku. Gundam, Requiem for Vengeance. I should watch that movie, I suppose. Got the Gundam and the Zaku. And I also just picked up the entry grade Grandpa full weapon set. So it's got all the bells and whistles. So I've got that to pick from. I got that to work from. And I've also got Ultimate Form Kuga, but I want to save him until I built the. I want to build it last out of the old of the Kugas, and I still need to get the Pegasus form and the Amazing / Rising set, Rising Mighty set. So that's 2 more Kugas I need to buy before I can build Ultimate. So that's what's coming down the pipe. I've placed an order. I've told Hobby Genki to ship all my Mini Pla, my S&P stuff. That'll be coming. I've got a order coming from Hobby Search as well for the Boom Boomster Mini Pla, first Mini Pla from last year. It's good timing actually that I say this, as they just revealed the Gojuger Mini Pla today. They look interesting. And I'll be getting those when they come out, probably. But yeah. So yeah, next up probably the either the entry grade Gundam or the Netflix Requiem for Vengeance Gundam. But shall see. Until then, hopefully I'll be on an actual Saturday next time. I will see you all again soon. Until then, have a great day. Thank you all very much for coming. Alright, thank you for coming.